We ran a couple of stories about something that's going on. The white supremacists, they understand how to refine and maintain the system of white supremacy in a major way. The white supremacists, they are now using phone apps to target black people now. That's the new refinement of white supremacy. There was a situation out there yesterday in Washington, D.C., where a black guy, some white supremacists, some random people just notified the police. I don't know if they called the police on phone or if they used an app. Sound like they used one of these little white supremacist apps. But they notified the police of these two black men who just happened to look suspicious. They were going to the ATM to get some money. Some suspected white supremacist civilians just called the police and said they looked suspicious. Then the police came and just rolled up on the dudes, twisting them up, and one damn near broke one brother's arm, twisting his arm behind his back. He's screaming. And I think they detained or arrested the guys for resisting arrest. And that's the new thing. Black people are out here getting arrested for resisting arrest. That old Jim Crow bullshit. You're just being arrested just for being black. You get arrested for resisting arrest. See, that sounds like a contradiction. It makes no sense, but in a system of white supremacy, it makes sense because black people, you have no rights. But now these white supremacists are using phone apps in order to share information with each other, in order to Jim Crow and segregate these neighborhoods. So whenever black people show up in some of these neighborhoods, these white supremacists are now connecting with each other anonymously on these apps, and these apps keep a lot of the information private. So now these white supremacists can privately and secretly share information. So when a black person show up, they can notify each other, then notify the police. So basically these apps, like one is called Nextdoor. We ran a couple of stories on that on melanoidnation.org. That's one up in the Bay. They're basically targeting black people. Any black person who's in one of these neighborhoods, you're just walking down the street buying a soda, all of a sudden the cops roll up on you because 20 or 30 white supremacists then put your information in an app anonymously. And the race soldiers are enforcing this stuff. So they'll roll up on you, start questioning you, and the minute you say, hey, what are you doing? I'm not doing nothing. Oh, you're resisting arrest. So this is why I don't get too much into that police brutality talk. I don't really get into police brutality talk because it's not about police brutality. It's about white supremacy, because I'm looking at all the people who's involved. I'm looking at the race soldier who opposing his cops, and I'm looking at the white supremacists who are calling the cops. But out there in the DC area, there's an app. And also, I think it's in New York as well that a lot of people use. It's called Sketch Factor. It's an app that's used to report so-called sketchy people. And the sketchy people are always usually black, according to the white supremacists. In Washington, there's also another one called Operation Group Me, where they use their apps to connect with other people in their communities and to connect with the police. And basically, according to the story, most of these apps are just the 70 and 80% of the people they're targeting are black people. They use these code words like AA. Hey, I see an AA person who looks suspicious. There's an AA person who's walking into this store. And they use these things. They say that they're making these apps to stop shoplifting and all this stuff. But when a black person walks in the store, they say shit like, we have a suspected shoplifter here. See these little words they use? So black people, you don't know how much your life is in danger on a regular basis. These white supremacists are working behind the scenes, endangering your life on a regular basis. And for the most part, you don't even know it until it's too late. See, we're going to have to start looking at all the white supremacists who are involved. Just like with our brother, little Tamir Rice, who was killed. And again, the law enforcement, they ruled, some of the officials up there in Ohio, they ruled that his killing by the suspected white supremacist cop of the 12-year-old boy Tamir Rice, they ruled that was justified. And they're still trying to get that cop off because the cop has not had charges brought against him or anything. This cop jumped out of a car, shot Tamir Rice 2 seconds after seeing him because he was outside playing with a toy gun. And what happened was a white supremacist suspect sat up looking at this child play with a toy, and the white supremacist civilian who saw Tamir Rice, he knew it was a child. Let's be very clear. This dude knew that this was a kid playing with a toy. He knew it. He called in and said, hey, there's a guy out here with a gun. He might be a child, but he's out here pointing the gun at people. That dude knew Tamir Rice was a little kid just out there playing by himself with a toy gun. He knew that. But that white supremacist was a race soldier as well. He knew how to call in the other race soldiers. He was a race soldier assistant. Let me say that. We should call them race dispatchers because they know how to dispatch the race soldiers. So with these apps, again, when white supremacists get together, what they do, they focus on how to maintain and refine and establish white supremacy. That's what they do. They use their apps. See, we get on apps and we start fucking around joking and bullshitting. Everything the white supremacists get a hold of, they use that to maintain the system of white supremacy. So what we need to do, black folks, melanoid folks, since these white supremacists are using their apps to profile us unjustly, to race dispatch the race soldiers on us, y'all need to download all of these apps yourself. Download, there's another one they got called Ghetto Tracker. Look at the code words that they use. So download Nextdoor, Ghetto Tracker, Sketch Factor, all of these so-called crime prevention apps. And what you need to do, black folks, start using code too. Start using code words too. Don't use race because they know how to not use race. That's how the white supremacists know how to refine white supremacy. They know how to use code words so that they're not specifically stating race. That's the part of their game. This is why the white supremacists will reprimand a person like Dylan Roof or even a Donald Sterling, because Dylan Roof and Donald Sterling, people like that, they broke the white supremacist code. So they have no problem reprimanding them or letting them be sacrificed to the wolves, so to speak. Because these were people who broke the code and used explicit racial terms. You're not supposed to do that in the refinement stage of white supremacy. That's a big no-no. Major no-no. That's why you'll see a person who's a white supremacist sit up and say, hey, man, that Dylan Roof, he's awful. That was awful what he did. Because now you can't deny that Dylan Roof is a white supremacist, because part of the game of white supremacy is denial. Being able to deny white supremacy exists. That's part of the refinement. So with Dylan Roof, you can't deny it. This dude wrote a manifesto. He was very specific about targeting black people. So the white supremacists, they'll throw him to the wolves. So just because somebody's throwing Dylan Roof to the curb, don't think that that person in the dominant society is not a white supremacist. All right? But part of the refinement stage is denial and using code words. So this is what you do, melanoid people. Download all those apps that these white supremacists are using. And what you do, you start reporting suspected white supremacists on those apps too. You need to start supporting or reporting suspected white supremacists on these apps. So when you see some suspected white supremacist dude walking around, what you need to do is get on that app anonymously like they do and say, hey, I see a suspected child molester walking around here. He's in some gray pants and a shirt. He has blonde hair, blue eyes. He's walking around. I'm scared. He might be a child molester. Somebody come get him. Got it? If you see a suspected white supremacist female walking around, get on your app and say, hey, look, I see a suspected meth user. I'm scared. She might be on the pipe. She might be on meth. I'm scared. She's on the corner of Avalon and 3rd. Start reporting suspected white supremacists and use code words, just like they use with us. Suspected shoplifter, suspicious person. Well, they're suspected to. You're suspected meth user. you're suspected pedophile. Let's do the same thing. Fight fire with fire.